Hi everyone, I'm Rahul Chugh. Today we have CG with us from Concierto to talk about migrations to AWS. Cool. So, CG, what is Concierto Cloud and how does it fit into cloud adoption journey?
Great first question. So let me explain this by telling that the Concierto that we have designed, it's a platform. It's not a single solution. It consists of about 6-7 solutions that work in a harmonious fashion with tight interconnection. So ideal to do a whiteboarding. Let's do a whiteboard and continue from there. All right. When we talk about Concierto solutions, the blocks that see in this whiteboard, each of this is an independently functioning Concierto solution. So let's start with the first solution, which is the access, correct? And again, the name is self-explanatory. When you are kickstarting a big migration or modernization engagement, the first thing that you want to do is to perform a migration readiness assessment. And once we complete the assessment, of course, there are 2 steps that you could do. And there are customers who are looking to have an upfront migration, straight up migration, and the customers who would like to modernize from the get-go, correct? Adopting the cloud native technologies from the get-go. So access being the trigger, we do have 2 solutions that are connected to this. One is a cloud migrate. So that's at any to any cloud. All right. Now that you are within the AWS cloud, one of the key challenges for the customers, it's like, and anyone who is new to AWS cloud, how am I going to manage this? Do I need to learn the cloud console? Or do I have some self-service options that's going to make my life seamless? That's where we designed the solution for day one support, Concierto Manage, which very effectively manages the end-to-end hybrid cloud operation systems. So I'm using the word hybrid cloud, the reason because you may have some leftover in on-prem as well as all the new workloads that are getting into AWS cloud. So no customer would need 2 different solutions. They would like to contain everything within a single solution. So that's where the effectiveness of Concierto Manage comes into play, correct? So the workloads that are migrated or any workload that you are modernizing, that actually goes into Manage. And another point is that there are customers who are migrating to AWS first. And once migration, after a period of time, they will phase it out and they will eventually end up modernizing all the work. Perfect. Now let's going back to Manage. Manage has got 2 different solutions. One is base ops and the second is advanced ops. So let me explain the difference real quick. So this being our 4th solution, we have 2 variants of Concierto Manage. The base ops, it's a lightweight operations for the customers who are starting for the SMB clients and the customers say with less than 1,000 devices. So here what we have included, it's the ITSM as well as the base monitoring capabilities so that the end-to-end functionalities are managed. And our ITSM, it's all about hyper automation. So there are thousands of automations natively built by Team Concierto as well as integrating with powerful solutions like AWS SSM. So that's been included within the base ops. And now when I talk about advanced ops, all the capabilities of base ops plus the hybrid cloud operations. Here I'm talking about observability, event management, patching, CIS health check, cloud scheduler, and multitude of things. And when analysts have reviewed Concierto Manage, what we have seen, Concierto Manage, it's displacing about 12 to 13 tools that you may see in a typical enterprise, correct? These tools might be siloed, might be half integrated, but might not be fully correlated. So this is a very powerful solution that you could use very effectively for your day one support. Last solution within the Concierto stack that is generally available as on today, it's the Concierto Maximize stack. So here we are talking about the spend analytics, the observability dashboard, the optimization recommendations. And the best thing is that not only providing that optimization recommendations, having a closed loop to remediate those optimizations, correct? So this could be resources being idling for many hours or days. So you could downsize the instance, correct? Right. This can be for your EC2, this can be for your storage. All your optimizations will be pointed out based on the actual usage, and we implement those automations dynamically. So that's included within the Concierto Maximize. And I will repeat one statement: all the solutions that you are talking, each of these solutions can operate independently as well as a bundle stack. From Concierto perspective, we have unique licenses for all these solutions, so no customer or no partner will be forced to buy all the solutions or to buy the entire stack. And the strength of each of these Concierto solutions, it's like we got a very strong foundational structure. We are using a terminology called CCBO. It's our time to teach you one new acronym, Rahul. That stands for Concierto Common Business Objects, correct? So our automation framework, our dynamic CMDB, business applications, business services, the cloud setup, the multi-account structure, and all the other foundational data, be it the users, be it the locations, it's all foundational to the entire solution stack that you see here, correct? And that's the reason why we have the utmost confidence to communicate to any customer that anyone who is starting with Access will have their migrate solution up and running in less than 4 hours. Anyone who is using migrate, they can actually shift to manage, say, in less than 8 hours, because the foundational structure is same. Most importantly, the user experience, it's not going to change. It's a well unified user interface structure. There are no different tools. You are not navigating from one to the other. I feel that they have been using the same unified user interface all the way from Access to Maximize. And I'm assuming I answered your question. Did I?
Yeah, it does. It does. So you are essentially taking customers from Assess to migrate to manage.
Correct.
And then maximizing their benefits on AWS within a few days.
Absolutely.
That's a very, very strong story for you too. So you have low cost to no cost offering in the market. Could you please talk more about it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we are actually offering this in collaboration with AWS. Big thank you to the AWS software ISV deal. And first thing, Rahul, it's not only on Concierto Migrate. The Concierto Access, Migrate, as well as the managed solutions are eligible for this exclusive offer from AWS. And what exactly is happening? The partners worldwide, AWS partners worldwide with 2 competencies. We insist, and AWS also insists, that the partners with migration and modernization competency, or who are it's a managed service provider for AWS, these partners worldwide can avail this offer. And the only requirement here is that when you actually calculate the ARR should be 125,000 or more. That's the minimum mandate in order to avail these licenses. Concierto Migrate and Access licenses are literally of no cost to all these partners with either of these competencies. In case of Concierto Manage, we are in a position to offer about 500 to 300 licenses. So based on the base ops or the advanced ops, we are in a position to offer licenses to manage about 500 to 300 virtual machines for the first year of operations when it comes to Concierto Manage.
Got it. Got it. So with the help of consulting partners who have migration modernization competency or MSP competency, you are essentially saying they can migrate their workloads at a very, very low cost or no cost.
Absolutely.
All the way to AWS.
Absolutely. And we have actually topped it up with multiple training, enablement, certification that we do to partners so that the partners will understand the Concierto as a solution. They will understand Concierto platform. They get certified. They will have their own sandbox access, and they will work alongside us for the first 2 to 3 engagements before they will operate independently. That's how the whole model has been designed at this point.
So it seems Concierto Migrate is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Could you please shed some light on it?
Sure. Let me do a double click on Concierto Migrate. All right, the first feature that's available within the Concierto Migrate, it's a prerequisite validation. Here what we meant, it's like many a times, since it's an agentless discovery, what we see, it's like we need some SSH or some basic information to be configured within the source systems. If for any reason, if the mandatory packages that are not available within the Linux or Windows footprint, instead of asking the customers to deploy all the packages, we do have a centralized portal within Concierto that does this prerequisite validation as well as the rollout of all the packages, correct? So that's the first capability. So moving into that, once the prerequisites are successfully validated, we kickstart an infrastructure discovery. There are a multitude of ways in which we could do the discovery from Concierto. One, it's a live discovery, which is native to Concierto. And the second, it's if there is an information that's available. So now when we talk about VMware, there's always this RV tools export that's available. If RV tools export, it's there, CMDB, it's there. You could actually use this information to create the initial baseline and enrich that with the live discovery capability or the vice versa, correct? So we do have multiple options. The only capability, it's like what all the customer is ready with, we consume all those data sources and trigger the infrastructure discovery from Concierto. And once the discovery is done, and the next key thing is to correlate with the applications. No one would like to understand what's happening with my Windows or Linux environment. People would like to understand how my application is defined and what's the health of my application, what's the impact to the application performance if you're going to migrate, correct? You are not going to provide that information by only doing the discovery. So we do have a very powerful business application composer within Concierto that actually consumes the information that we are getting from application stakeholders plus one or two primary CIs. We are not asking for all the key information from the stakeholders. If the stakeholders can tell us the one or two key CIs that are related to your applications or databases, we will consume that information and stitches the topology by connecting all the CIs. Because when we do the discovery, we capture multitude of dependencies in all the fashions, going up in the hierarchy, going down in the hierarchy, going across. We capture all these dependencies that got overlaid within the business application mapping. Once you complete the infrastructure discovery and application mapping, you have all the required information in order to compile the executive reporting that you are going to take the decision on, correct? The migration readiness assessment decision and the executive report, it's an outcome of these two capabilities within Concierto. That literally completes your assess phase. Then when we move into the cloud migration, the first thing that we would need, you need to have a very clearly defined secured landing zone as well as the cloud foundations. You don't need to use an external solution for that. There are capabilities within Concierto to build your workload landing zone as well as the platform landing zone from Concierto itself. You will define this, and once you define this, you consume the outcome from your business application mapping, and you will overlay that with the different environments in which the applications are hosted, correct? You're overlaying that information based on these two correlation. What we will be creating, it's a logical wave group. This is the sequence in which you are migrating, ensuring that all the dependent components are interconnected within the single wave group, and this actually eventually be fed into migration. Migration as well, a lot of best practices are available within Concierto based on the size of the application that we are migrating it. If it's less than 500 GB, you could actually migrate in a single stretch. But larger applications, we always recommend to precede the information so that if you have a smaller maintenance window, you don't need to try to contain the whole migration within a smaller maintenance window. You precede the information, you have the data replicated to the target. That also would give you an opportunity to validate the information upfront ahead of the final validation, final cutover. Then from that moment onwards, you have the continuous replication happening that's going to migrate all the delta changes. Multiple best practices are built into Concierto. Migration can be one time, or for large applications, we actually do precede the information and then we'll deploy the continuous migration so that during the change window, the delta of changes that you will be replicating from the source to target will be bare minimal. So after the migration, so this is one uniqueness that's been there within Concierto. So many clients will have multiple changes when they lift and shift their workloads from on-prem to cloud. And there will be, say for instance, monitoring that you may do in on-prem might not be the same thing that you will do once you are actually cloud-born. So we do have multiple automations that's been available within Concierto so that after the executing the migration, you don't need to do any of these changes in a manual fashion. It could all be automated from the same solution. So all the way from prerequisite validation to pre-migration automation, it all happens in a wizard-driven workflow within Concierto, each of them sequential, and the output from one of these stages providing as an input to the second stage so that the data is getting carried over all the way from first stage to the last stage. I do have one more line item here. If you may ask me, like where new build is, why new build it's included here, and Rahul, you might have seen that. So 10 to 15% of workloads, there will always be edge scenarios. No automation tool can claim that I am doing 100% of workload migration effectively. There will always be 10 to 15% of edge scenarios. In those cases, one of the steps that we will very effectively use is to build a new environment using automation. And this is not the vanilla build, the golden standard build within the cloud environment in a very effective fashion and sniff the data that you need to migrate from the source. So we call it as SDM or selective data migration. You pick the file or the folders or those specific DB files that need to be migrated from the source to the target, so that a combination of a golden standard new build plus selective data migration will take you up to 90% of the things that you should have been doing manually if otherwise. So these are the various steps that's been included within the Concierto migrate in a logical UI wizard flow. And the best thing, it's like you are doing zero coding during this entire process. You are not writing any scripts. You don't need to be a CloudFormation expert. You don't need to be an Ansible expert. We have sniffed majority of all the scenarios that's been over there. All the automation is pre-scripted. So you are only navigating the flow from start to end using user interface wizards.
So what's the USP of Concierto?
Good that you asked that, Rahul. So we do have multiple uniqueness or USP for Concierto. The one thing is what we just discussed, the start to end experience from a unified solution. We discussed all the way from prerequisite validation to cutover, the whole experience from a single platform. That's Concierto. And this is same when it comes to Concierto migrate, manage, maximize, the end-to-end experience for all the solutions. It's within the same unified platform. And the second key differentiator for Concierto is its velocity. We haven't talked really much about the throughput that's possible from Concierto. So if you talk about Concierto migrate, the throughput that's possible, it's about 1200 to 1500 VMs per month. That's the throughput that's possible from a single instance of Concierto. And what we are doing, it's like for the enterprise customers who are in an urgency to migrate fast or on an accelerated migration route, we have a grid-based deployment of Concierto. For one of our enterprise clients, they have 5 instances of Concierto up and running the same time, and all these instances, all the 5 instances if you are using, all these 5 instances will be interconnected at a single Concierto user portal, correct? So you will have visibility of what's happening across each of those instances and the centralized visibility within the Concierto user portal we have. And the grid deployment will ensure that the velocity is magnifying, in this case, 5 times. So this is one of yet another uniqueness. And the third uniqueness, if I could say about Concierto, it's that we do discovery to migration execution in an agentless fashion. So there is no dedicated agent that runs within the source environment. That's where we see the maximum amount of issues. If there is an agent running, that's where it could cause issues with the applications running within the source environment. We use all the discovery assessment in an agentless fashion using very secured protocols. And this has been accepted well by the customers as well as the security team, who always have an eye on what data is getting carried over from the source environment to the target AWS cloud. And the last one, I will repeat this, it's the end-to-end cloud adoption experience. We talked about the cloud adoption experience from Concierto migrate, how we do from the prerequisite validation back to the cutover. Now, when we actually carry forward the journey, right? You do the migration, you decide if you need to modernize, and of course, there is a need for day one support or how to run the entire operations in an optimized fashion. The whole thing being available within a single unified framework. That's the end-to-end cloud adoption framework with the major theme of hyper automation. This is something that need to be underlined. The whole Concierto has the theme of hyper automation, where the zero code or no code concept, it's in effect with thousands of automation. So a lot of automation, it's been built natively by the Concierto engineers. And I mentioned earlier, we also integrate with AWS native solutions like SSM, which has a lot of powerful automations when it comes to hyper automation. Together, the partnership between AWS and Concierto, it's elevating our customers and creating the seamless experience that they have been looking for when it comes to the cloud adoption.
Thanks, CG, for sharing the capabilities of Concierto. So what is the best way our audience can reach out to you to use Concierto?
Sure. Any of you who are listening to us, you can always reach out to us at reach@concierto.cloud. Correct? It's as simple as this. And you drop in an email and we will respond to you within 24 hours. Thank you.